Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast and media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Mathmachine, the Shark, and Jordan. Today is our 85th episode, and we're discussing the 1962 The Flintstones episode, Dino Goes Hollyrock. So, let's get things started.
Granddad!
Yabba-dabba-doo! Also, Wilma!
Yep. We had to start it with that. Yep. We had to start with those folks. We're sorry about that, but we had to start with that. But it's very interesting. Hanna Barbera was arguably one of the first cartoon companies to really start making things directly for television after making theatrical shorts for years. Originally their shows were more children's fare, but then I believe in around the late 50s they decided to make an adult sitcom. Originally, they couldn't think of a setting for it before one writer got the idea to set it in the Stone Age. And infamously, like most Hanna-Barbera properties, it was based on a popular comedian slash sitcom of the time, this one being The Honeymooners. Now, you could really make direct parallels from most Hanna-Barbera characters to celebrities. Yogi Bear was Art Carney, Top Cat was Phil Silvers, Snagglepuss was Bert Lahr, who voiced the Cowardly Lion in Wizard of Oz. But this is one of the times that the person behind the show that got ripped off actually got really upset. Jackie Gleason was so angry at the Flintstones existing, he considered suing them. And the only reason he was talked out of it because his friends told him that being the man who killed Fred Flintstone would not be good for his image. But he easily probably could have won in the early days.
Yep.
Also, Wally Gator was based off the Mad Hatter.
Yep, Edwin. But yeah, they basically did that with all of their shows in the 50s and 60s, and it was a formula, but it was a formula that definitely worked. And as I feel like after Scooby-Doo, Flintstones is probably the most popular Hanna-Barbera property, and for good reason. It holds up a lot better than people expect. I think a lot of people think of it as a kid's show, but if you go back and you sit down and you watch it, the writing is a lot wittier than I think people give it credit for.
Yeah, and to give you an idea of how mature it actually was, there was one point in America where during a viewing of the royal procession of the newly crowned queen at the time, and at a commercial, there was a legit ad for the Flintstones supporting cigarettes. So yeah.
Yeah, the Flintstones was, and that's why the Flintstones did the infamous cigarette commercial. It was not a kids show. It was an adult TV show.
Yeah, indeed, and yeah, basically you can tell how kinda their image became more kid-friendly because they went from cigar commercials to cereal commercials.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cocoa Pebbles Duska. That didn't age well, but
classic.
yeah.
Classic.
Also, but honestly, though, I think the last little bit of adult stuff that the Flintstones actually did was in one TV movie, I think, where Bam Bam and Pebbles got freaking were older, were young adults, as it were, and were actually professing their love for each other, and there's a legit hospital scene.
Yeah. That was the finale of the Flintstones. There also was a Flintstones on the Rocks, the TV special that had Fred and Wilma going through marital trouble and stuff like that. And it's very interesting how it just keeps going like that. But this episode,
I was going to mention that there's a whole, maybe it was an attempt to bring them back to an adult image, but it didn't quite work because not many people are a fan of that On the Rocks special.
Yeah.
It's also they did a wrestling thing, but I don't think a lot of people talk about that.
Oh yeah, they did with the WWE, which is like the Scooby-Doo did two things with WWE, Flintstones did one, Jetsons did one. Sadly, we did not get to see Dick Dastardly versus the WWE because that would have been amazing if it was.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, him in like a suplex. Muttley, do something.
John Cena.
Yeah,
For all you
yeah,
people out
doing
there
the
who
laugh.
still like that.
Classic. But
Nice.
enough a little bit of tangents. Time to get to the episode itself. Now, what's interesting to note is the episode does not begin with the famous Meet the Flintstones theme song, but this is actually a different intro animation that is called Rise and Shine. It's basically Fred driving home from work and getting the paper, getting a suit at the tailor and that. And it's interesting to see because because I think what happened was they replaced this intro with Meet the Flintstones for years. And that's why people think that's the intro to the Flintstones, but that didn't happen until later on in the seasons. And it's also
that sadly means we don't get to see the scene that inspired that one moment and that one Pibby thing that that sadly never happened, where Fred Flintstone slides off the dinosaur into a freaking glitched mess.
Yep, we do not get to see that. If they had it like this, they probably would have had him driving into it. But anyway, Matt, you were saying?
We are literally 2 episodes early for Meet the Flintstones. They started season 3, episode 3. We're on episode 1.
Wow, that close, huh? Wow, that is something else.
We were on the cusp, I'll tell you what.
Yep, almost. And another interesting thing to notice is Dino is actually colored blue in the intro and not his usual purplish, which don't know if it was an animation error or not. There is one glaring animation error with the credits animation that we'll talk about when we get to it, but it's something I've always noticed since I was a kid, and it's something that when you see it, you will never unsee it. But we'll talk about that later on. The episode itself, Dino Goes Hollyrock, begins with Fred and Barney driving home from work as Fred complains about how hard his job is. Fred nearly runs into a traffic cop as he's trying to rush home to get to see the fight on TV. And it's here where we get to hear the infamous Flintstones laugh track, which is like, why would they have a laugh track over a cartoon? Were they drawing it in front of a live studio audience? But the reason it was in was because the network demanded it. Hanna Barbera themselves thought it was stupid. And I know in some releases, like on DVD and that, they actually ripped out the laugh track. Go ahead, Shark.
Yeah, I think the reason that they might have added it is because, this is supposed to be an animated sitcom, and in every sitcom there's a loud track, so add the loud so it feels more like a sitcom.
Exactly. But there it makes sense because sitcoms were filmed in front of a live studio audience at the time. So it was real people laughing. But now you have recordings of those real people playing over cartoons, and it's just weird.
Yeah, however, I will say this, a little bit of a hot take, but stuff like Flintstones makes sense because it's supposed to be that way. It's a sitcom, and sitcoms at the time had laugh tracks.
True.
For stuff like Scooby-Doo, however...
That was weird. That was weird.
Yeah.
Scooby. Yeah.
Hanna Barbera did love their laugh tracks back in the day.
Yep. Again, I think that was forced on them because, it's a kid's show and we gotta have the stupid laugh track. But, well.
Okay, it wasn't stupid. It just felt misplaced.
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, like, you know what I mean. I mean it that way.
Yeah, I know.
It's okay. But Barney closes his eyes as Fred says that he wants to see a slam bang Rooney on TV, followed by Barney saying that they might end up having one on the road. We then cut to the Flintstone household as Wilma is busy knitting with an actual sheep nearby her. And in a classic Flintstones gag, Wilma mentions that the sweater she's making will keep Fred warm, following by the sheep complaining that he won't be. And the animals talking back were definitely something that everybody knows about Flintstones. It's like Meet the Flintstones, the ending, and the "It's a living" birds. That is what people remember of the show, and probably for good reason. Anyway, Matthew, you were saying?
I was about to say, it's a living.
Yep.
Yeah, honestly, that's kind of the whole charm. Like, it's the Stone Ages. Everything had to be powered by something, like people, animals, dinosaurs, you name it.
That's the real fun of the Flintstones is the world building. They actually you could tell they had a lot of fun thinking up of things, and we'll talk more about some of the fun bits of world building later on. But for now, Dino, who is Fred's pet dinosaur, then perks up at seeing Fred's coming home, and he barks in excitement. Now, there's 2 things to note that's interesting, which is number 1, Dino is voiced by Mel Blanc, who also voices Barney Rubble. And number 2, in his first appearance, Dino talked. He was like a Phil Silvers knockoff, which is weird because Top Cat was also a Phil Silvers knockoff. Go ahead, Matt, you were saying?
Yeah, and to explain the intro as well, he talked in his first appearance, and he was more of a darkish purple bordering on blue in his original appearance. He's gotten more and more pink as the seasons went on until they finally got to the official coloring that we know in this day and age. But that explains the intro, why he looked the way he did, because they just kept changing him as the series went on until they finally set on his design. This was sort of a happening in real time situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, honestly, hearing that, it's like a good example of how that ultimately feels a little weird. Is like if you took Zim from the Dragon Prince and have him legit speak first, and then later on just replace it with dog noises. That is how bizarre that honestly feels.
Yeah, that is exactly what Flintstones did. But of course, back then they didn't care about continuity. It's like an episode aired once, and it probably would never air again. Because I think this predated even reruns, so again, they probably didn't think about that.
Honestly, that honestly almost sounds as bizarre as Doctor Who's handling.
Yep, but thankfully Flintstones were saved, unlike Doctor Who. But what happens is Dino excitingly leaps on Fred and licks him as Fred laughs. But the real funny part to me is Barney's half-hearted attempts to get Dino to stop. It's like, oh, stop that! No, bad boy, get off! It's just so. I think it's Mel Blanc's delivery here. It really works.
It also reminds me of the freaking Gene Wilder Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, where it's like, oh no, wait, please come back.
classic. Shark, you were saying?
Yeah. So well, if it's Barney, then he's basically trying to give commands to himself.
Yeah, it is kind of when you think about it. Yeah.
Or take the Cocoa or Fruity Pebbles from Fred.
Fred, that too. Yep. Another little bit of fun world building happens as Fred looks at his sundial watch, haha, and he realizes the fight is on at 7. Dino runs into the house before them as Fred and Barney are confused. The pair go into the house as the TV is on channel 7, but Fred notes that the fight is on channel 14. He tries to change the channel, which leads to a really hilarious facial reaction from Dino, who then changes it back. And again, this is one thing with Hanna Barbera. Their animation was not the best at times, but what they lacked for that, they made up for in character design and facial expression. Because, again, for TV at the time, you compare this to another show that was airing like Rocky and Bullwinkle, this is night and day, you know?
Oh boy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, you were saying?
Something interesting here that you'll probably notice, maybe in the earlier episode, is that, well, we talk about how clever they were with the whole animals being the applicants of the house. They pretty much gave up on the TV because television works as normal in this world. There's like they're not watching a telescope. There's not an animal painting. Is television.
Yep, and later on they actually do something with that, which makes it only weirder. Matthew, you were saying?
Yeah, one of the things that people forget is that Hanna-Barbera has a very storied career in animation production. They were the guys that made Tom and Jerry, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
These people made effectively silent shorts that were just slapstick, and they were some of the greatest shorts of all time. They know how to tell stories and how to do expressions and how to get across what's going on without any verbalization at all. There's a reason these people had, I think at the time of the Flintstones airing, something like 80% of the market of TV animation. They knew what they were doing.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
And also again, another. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah, like gags like what's upcoming with like the actual fight are also pretty impressive. Like, and honestly, hilarious. How it sounds kind of reminds me of real world wrestling and one fight in particular, the Toxic Turtles against 2 other wrestlers that I forgot the names of, which the sound quality is just jank, and it honestly kind of that part in the Flintstones reminds me of that. It's hilarious.
Exactly. But when Fred tries again to change the channel, Dino tries to bite him in another funny moment. It turns out that the reason he's doing this is he wants to watch the adventures of Sassie, his favorite show. And I really like this, again, this exchange between Fred and Barney. He's like, Dino's a pet. What does that make me? I don't know, Fred. A TV dinner? Exactly. Again, they really had a good writing on this, too. But Wilma suggested they could go over to Barney's house for the fight, while Dino is too engrossed in the show to notice. And we get to see now the beginning of Sassie, which is, of course, a spoof of the 1950s show Lassie. And I will say this, and we'll get more in depth later on, but for the 1960s, this was really biting satire because right off the bat, we get some good satire with the fact that the sponsor appears on the TV like 3 times as much as the show does is a really clever joke. Again, because TV back then was sponsored, they would like plaster the products everywhere, and it's a really good joke that way. Go ahead, Angron.
Yeah, it's also funny that freaking. Let me think here. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, it's also funny that. God damn it! I had something.
It's okay. Take your time.
What was it?
It'll come back, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll come
back. It's all right. But what happened? Matt, you were saying?
Yeah, it you can absolutely see like this is Simpsons style satire, over exaggeration of stuff, but slightly less cynical. You can see the foundations in the Flintstones for what would be the Simpsons humor.
Oh, easily. Angron, you were saying?
Yeah, I remember now. So, so yeah, there's a reason that the 90s and early 2000s for a while referenced this because let's be fair. At this point, they were iconic for many reasons. Let's be fair here. The freaking Hanna Barbera characters like the Flintstones and whatnot, they definitely deserved all the love at that point. And stuff like Batman the Animated Series made sure of that.
Oh, definitely. And like I say, we then get the reason why we're talking about this episode on the podcast, Sassie herself. She basically is a purple Dino with white hair and a pearl necklace. And again, the animation is a really nice trick here where it looks like Sassie is looking directly at Dino as he's watching it on the TV, which is a pretty funny joke. Fred goes to repair the channel, but Dino just growls at him, which causes Fred to go over to Barney's house. We then cut to them there watching the big fight on TV, which this to me is probably the funniest moment of the episode. The big fight on the TV that they've been talking about for pretty much the first 5-10 minutes of the show is 2 cavemen bonking each other on the head with clubs. And It's not just that. It's the classic cartoon bonk sound effect that they play over and over, which that's another thing with Hanna Barbera that they really knew. These guys knew their sound design because every noise was perfectly attuned to the situation. Like, I wouldn't have been half as funny if the caveman didn't do like the cartoon bonk noises repeatedly as they club each other over the head. Anyway, you were saying?
And also the fact that, well, you'll mention it in a bit, but I want to mention that I love Fred's delivery when he's about to change the channel before Dino Girls like that. I'm just going to Barney's house.
Exactly.
Yeah. Also,
and that's what it reminds me of the end of an episode of Dexter's Laboratory, the one when Dad wants to watch a golf game, but the whole family doesn't let him. It actually ends with him going to Barney's house to watch the sports.
I know, that was and not a lot of people know Dexter's Lab was Hanna Barbera. That and Powerpuff Girls and Johnny Bravo. Those were Hanna Barbera shows, the last ones.
Oh, well then.
Yeah. Yep. They went out on a high note.
Yeah, it's also funny that like the entire fight, just good lord, where do I begin with this? First of all, it's just freaking 2 cavemen bonking. Like at this point, it kind of sounds like what wrestling or boxing would be nowadays. Second, there's a moment in the fight where like one of the freaking fighters freaking starts bawling, and
I was just about to mention that. That's funny. That basically what happens is Betty shows up. She says that she wants to watch Sassie. Fred mentions that it's on at his house, and that if Wilma doesn't have it on, she has her hand chewed off in a funny joke. And then we get to see the fight commentator says, "Oh no, it looks like the champ is hurt." And it cuts to one of the cavemen just bawling his eyes out. And honestly, the funniest moment of the episode for me is just this caveman guy just bawling his eyes out, and the other guy looks so stunned. Not only that, it cuts back to Fred and Barney, who are just watching this on TV with complete confusion on their face. And when I say this is the funniest moment of the episode, I mean it. It's something that's it doesn't sound funny when you explain it, but when you see it, it really, really works.
Yeah,
okay, let's see this first. Angron?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Honestly, the only thing I'd say to this is, how is this supposed to be for adults again when stuff like this is happening? Like, oh my gosh, it's hilarious.
Exactly. Matt, you were saying?
You ask how this is supposed to be for adults. Here's how. Because to me, the funniest part of that was actually when the announcer says, the kid gave the champ a blow on the nose," and the kid hands the champ a handkerchief so that the champ can blow his nose.
Nice.
But what happens is we then cut back to Wilma, Betty, and Dino watching Sassie, which is actually shown to be so repetitive it becomes hilarious. Again, this is like, you could really make the case that this is Simpsons level satire of something that was popular on television at the time. And I love the bit of Sassie when she trots in. She is holding a miniature flag with the network logo in her paw. That is so funny when you really think about it, how it satirizes television. And we get a lot more of that later on, so we'll talk about that when it comes. And another fun bit of animation is Dino reacting to literally everything the little kid says, like, "Good girl, aren't you, Sassie?" And then Dino nods excitedly, "You're patrols," and he shakes his head like no. Again, really fun bit of animation, especially for TV of the 1960s.
Wait, what was the flag she was holding again?
It's a flag, but it has the logo of the network Sassie is on.
Oh, cute.
It's a really cute little gag.
Blatant in-universe advertising, more so than the time Big Belly Burger was on Death Battle.
Yep, definitely. But when the sponsor comes on TV, Dino runs away, but then he instantly runs back when the sponsor says that you can win an autographed photo of Sassie if you send in 10 cans of their pet food, which causes Dino to get his leash and run out of the house, running into Barney's house, and then takes Fred away while they're watching the fight. And then this leads to another really great part with the announcer says, like, "Oh, that was a great punch," and Barney says, "I'll say, that punch is so good, it knocked Fred out of the house." Exactly. Yeah, classic, guys. You gotta do it. But Dino rushes with Fred to the supermarket as we hear crashing noises from an exterior shot, which, again, is a pretty good way to save on animation because you think like they'd cut to the inside, like with them stuff being knocked down, but it's just the exterior shot and it shakes up and down, which, again, is a kind of clever way to get around it. When we do cut to the inside of the supermarket, Fred is literally inside of the shopping cart, surrounded by cans of pet food as he complains he doesn't want any. Fred is forced to buy it, and in another cute gag, a chimpanzee lives in the register and takes the money. Then, I didn't get this joke. Maybe it's something that made sense in 1960s America. That Fred is given stamps by the store clerk as Dino leaves, and I don't know. It's something I didn't really get that. Math, go ahead.
Back in the post-war era, a lot of food places did this sort of like stamp thing as sort of a reward system. So if you got enough stamps, you could send those back in for like a lunchbox or some free bananas or whatever. It's one of those prize systems that cashback cards do these days.
I see. That makes sense. Okay. I did not know that, so thanks for that. But we then cut back to the Flintstones household as Fred is telling off Dino for hogging the TV and forcing him to buy stuff he doesn't need. Again, Dino's reactions here is another really good bit of animation as Fred demands he gets out. And the part with Dino in the window with like a little sack over his shoulder and just looking so sad is another really funny bit. Fred, meanwhile, reads the can of pet food and sees that there's an offer for a pet to appear on the Sassie show, and then they'll get a top salary. And it's here where you could really see like the honeymooners aspect, because like Ralph Cramden before him, Fred would often do really crazy get-rich-quick schemes to, well, get rich.
Yep.
It was pretty much a staple of the show until Pebbles was born. Then after that, it kind of completely became its own show, but I can see where Jackie Gleason came from with the honeymooners similarities, because that's definitely something the Cramdens would have done if they could have afforded a dog, of course.
Yeah, and no doubt the dad would probably get fed up with the dog whenever the dog did something stupid. Oh, and that reminds me, what the dog doing?
Classic. But Fred then runs after Dino, who is waiting at a bus stop, and because this is Bedrock, that must mean one thing. This must be the rock bottom bus stop.
Oh gosh!
I had to say it. My apologies. I had to say it out there.
How dare you?
Go ahead.
Ruff, can't understand your accent.
Oh, classic. That's great right there. But Fred basically coos over Dino as he brings him home. And we then cut to the next day where Dino is relaxing in a hammock while Fred tries showing him what tricks to do with the help of Barney. He like throws a stick and Barney catches it. He does like a back on that. And then he tells him to play dead. And then we get another really hilarious exchange here. Play dead. And then Fred is, now count to 3. I can't, Fred, I'm dead. Again, I think it's what it is. It's Mel Blanc's delivery on these lines. That is so funny.
Yes, it is.
Like, it shows what a fantastic voice actor he really was. But Dino is not paying attention to Fred. He's busy just eating his pet food and sleeping. Apparently, Gary took the advice when preparing for the Great Snail Race. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Yep, exactly. Had to do that. But anyway, Fred remarks that it might not matter, as the producers might like his personality. We then cut to the TV studio where we see Fred and Dino are waiting with a bunch of other people with their pets. And during this panning shot, there's like 10 jokes that you actually have to pause and like go slowly to see them all. Like one guy has like a really miniature triceratops in a cage. Another guy has a lion that's like 3 times his size. And the clock on the wall, another fun detail, is a sundial.
Yep.
And
good old caveman humor.
Yep. And it's here one thing that I want to bring up. I probably could have brought it up earlier, but it's interesting, is that one thing the Flintstones had over the honeymooners is the Flintstones could do way more types of stories because it was animated. Because the honeymooners only had like 3 sets, and most of the time was in the Cramdens' apartment because, again, they couldn't afford that stuff. But I think that's also kind of what differentiated Flintstones from honeymooners. But anyway, Angron, you were saying?
Take that, live action! Animation triumphs over you once again.
It does in this case. Math, go ahead.
Yeah, this is another reason why Hanna Barbera was as successful as they were. That they remember this thing that we seem to have forgotten in this day and age. Cartoons can do cartoon shit. They don't have to stick to reality. They can be wild and crazy, and people want that.
Exactly. Absolutely, exactly. But it turns out that Fred is the last person to be called in, and he goes in there, and he meets the director. Now, the director, the problem with the Flintstones is the cast credits at the end just have I think a generic set of people, so we can't really find out who voiced who. But he sounds like he was voiced by Frank Nelson. Now, Frank Nelson was a comedian best known for I Love Lucy. He usually played like obnoxious clerks and waiters and things like that. And his catchphrase is one that actually probably is best remembered today for being referenced on The Simpsons. It was this. Yes. That was him. That was Frank Nelson. His entire bit is that he would play like rude store clerks or rude customer service people. That there'd be a bit like, again, Jack Benny would go up to him and ask, "Oh, do you work in this airport?" "Oh, no, I just like to stand here all day and smell the diesel fumes." That was his whole bit. And he had like a 40, 50-year-long career on one bit. Insane,
Nice.
That sounds really similar to the red guy in Cow and Chicken.
It could have been. The red guy could have very well been based on Frank Nelson. He was a very popular comedian. He appeared in a lot of cartoons, especially Hanna Barbera stuff. He was one of their regulars too. And again, he's one of those Yep.
Hello, it's me.
It definitely sounds like him.
Touch
Yeah,
up.
it very well could be a Frank Nelson impression because again, he's one of those. He was one of those comedians that appeared a lot in these kind of shows, and he's really funny. If you haven't seen him on I Love Lucy as like the obnoxious game show host, check it out. He is hilarious. He actually
Nice.
upstaged Lucille Ball. He is so funny.
Also, that bit honestly reminded me of that one scene from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends where like Max trying to help Blue master being recognized being sarcastic, and like that right there, seeing like yes, and like the whole personality of Frank Nelson just made me remember that scene where Blue's like, "Duh, could I be any more sarcastic?" And also to an extent, Harriman
nice.
saying that, but yeah. Anyways.
Anyway, Matt, you were saying?
It was actually John Stevenson who
Oh,
was
so
the
John's.
voice of Mr. Slate.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
He must have been doing
Oh.
a Frank Nelson impression there because I know Nelson was on Flintstones, so maybe they couldn't
Nice.
get him, so they got him to do an impression of him.
Oh
Interesting.
yeah, this man has a very long story career in voice acting, and he actually does voice acting, so that's probably what he was doing.
Yeah, that's true. But what happens is the director mentions that the role they're looking for the Sassie show is for the love scenes. Dino immediately jumps into action, doing a vaudeville dance, and when the director tells him to play dead, he does it in such a hilariously overly hammy way. It is so funny. It really, really is.
Yeah, it's
Go
also
ahead.
funny because like this was teased at the opening of the show. I don't know if it's like I don't know if like every Flintstones episode did this, but yeah, like seeing that out of context, honestly, was kind of a bit hilarious, a little bit.
Right,
not
right.
too
Can't
laugh
believe I
out
forgot to
loud, but
mention
it definitely got a little bit of a chuckle out of me.
Oh, definitely. Shark, you were saying?
Yeah, at least he didn't do the Goddard way of playing dead.
Oh God, that would have been
Yeah.
very
Oh,
interesting.
you had to bring
Shish.
that up. You had to bring that
God.
up.
Yep. But we then cut. But of course, the director sees this and he loves it, much to Fred's shock, and he decides to give Dino a screen test the next day. And we then cut to Fred and Dino driving to the studio. Fred tries telling Dino not to get nervous as Fred continues to panic, eventually getting Dino nervous and saying that if he blows it, it'll be bad for both of them. I love seeing stuff like Dino nervously barking while Fred tells him, "Oh no, yesterday you did so much better." And then he says and Dino's expressions there are so much fun too. And we then get probably the second funniest scene of the episode to me, which is, Fred has Dino read his script and Dino goes, "Dino, you're reading the script backwards." Yipe! It's something that it's so simple and stupid, but it is so funny, and it's hard to explain why, Go ahead, Matt.
Oh man! Imagine freaking him reading the spell to summon Bill Cipher, and like that. Fred's like, "No, I don't," and he just freaking does it. Oh, that would be freaking crazy.
Oh, God. That would have been great.
Yeah.
But then the sequence ends with Dino wearing the script as a hat, as Fred says, "All you have to do is keep your mind on your script." Haha. We then cut to Dino and Fred arriving at Screen Rock Studio, which is actually a spoof of Screen Gems, the production company behind Flintstones, interestingly enough.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Nice.
Kind of nice little soft reference there. The
They
guard
could have
stops
easily done
them.
a Hollywood one, but they didn't. Clever. Nice.
Yeah, and they
Nice.
actually go there later on in the series, so I wonder why they didn't now, but interesting. The guard stops them before Fred tells them that they're there for Dino's screen test. The guard tells them the right direction, then tells them they have to be careful because of weird characters on TV on sets, remarking that things aren't getting any better to the audience after they leave. And now they actually get on the set where the director introduces them to the cast, and this is the part that really is biting satire for the time. This, I feel, is probably, I think, as light as cynical, I think, as Flintstones would go. This is probably the most cynical bit of satire I've actually seen from them. The cast themselves are all aloof and spoiled. Like the cute little boy is like a spoiled little brat in that. The humble housewife is like almost like a Mae West type of woman. And again, it really is funny that they actually went through with this, especially for the time period. Basically telling people, hey, we know you're not stupid. We know you know that actors are fake. They're nothing like their personalities on screen. We know you're not stupid.
Yeah.
Angron, you're saying?
Yeah, those were very much. Honestly, those were kind of expected in a good way, but those pale in comparison to quite possibly the big shot of the studio, Sassie herself.
Yep.
Oh
Yep.
boy.
She bounds out, and Dino kisses her hand, much to everybody's shock. When the director introduces Dino to her, she merely sticks her head up and sniffs at him. And it's here we get another really. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Honestly, I think the best way to describe Sassie in real life would basically be what would make Georgette look better in comparison. Like, make Georgette look like a nicer person by sheer comparison.
Exactly. And again, it really is a good moment. And we had another good, funny moment with the director who says, "That is how we are able to do such a warm, lovable, and believable show week after week after week after week." It is so funny, again, with John Stevenson's delivery. I can't believe I used Frank Nelson, but kind of sounds similar. But go ahead, Shark.
Wonder if that comment was basically a jab at the Flintstones themselves.
I think it was more of a jab at the more formulaic sitcoms on the other networks, because don't forget, this is the time of shows like Lassie and Flipper and stuff where like Anna and like Gentle Ben, shows where animals would save humans in like dangerous situations, and then they'd say how much we love our animal friend. It really was satire of those kind of shows.
Yep.
Of a type of show that was popular at the time. But then the director has them prepare for the happy ending scene as the three take their places, and it's here where we get another cute bit of world building with, if you notice these set lights, they all have candles in them. That's a cute little bit of world building right there that they didn't have to do, but the fact they did attention to detail like that's a nice one.
And yeah, as a person who majored in film tech and is watching this, it's honestly even more hilarious given how there were sunlights back in the day that were superheated lamps that honestly kind of was the closest you could get to like something like the Flintstones, because candles were hot, so were the freaking quartz light lamps of yesteryear or yesterdecade or so.
Yep. That's interesting. I actually did not know that. But what happens is we then get the happy ending, which is so ridiculously sappy. It is hysterical with their appeared instances of how much they love Sassie and how much Sassie loves them. And in my family, it has been a running gag for like years that whenever we say like we love something, we always say something like, "And I love Sassie." It's so funny again how they say it, you know. But after the scene is over, the actors go back to their original personalities. The child actor storms up to the director and demands some more close-ups. Sassie sticks her tongue out at the other actors as it's time for Dino's screen test. We then cut to Fred and the director watching on for the next scene, which again really spoofs how Lassie was so ridiculous with its scenarios that it got so insane. Because the director says that you're off to pay the mortgage, but Mom, you have a leg in a bear trap. Kid, you have both legs in a bear trap. And Sassie, you have 3 broken legs. And then we get the funniest moment of this. But don't forget, you're happy because you're together. And then the actors do like cheesy grins. It is so funny. And again, I don't mean to keep hammering this point, but this really is like biting satire for like 1961, 62. This is actually really, really sharp. Sharper than a lot of television was back then. And you could really, really make the case that like Simpsons took this and made it edgier for the 90s, but without this, like episodes like this, Simpsons might not have even existed like how it did. So, take that for what it's worth.
Oh, hell yeah. Also, it's oh gosh, there was a memory that I was going to say. It's also funny given how what was it? It was like I hear the freaking cheesy grins and I just immediately think that this could be This honestly is way better than something like Ukhtar,
Yeah.
like
Better than
man.
that.
Or Future
Definitely,
War
definitely.
even. I didn't want to be too obvious with that, but yeah, this is way better production than Future War.
Way better, way better. And then we get another little fun bit of world building as the director says action. But what happens is a tiny bird goes in the camera and starts painting all the scenes, but then he paints it wrong and says, "Oh well, we'll edit it out, I guess." Again, a really really cute moment there.
Yeah, honestly, eat your heart out, Rohan Kishi, or honestly, Rohan Kishibe could probably do better, in my opinion. Oh man,
SpongeBob and Patrick's movie too, but
also freaking that one painter guy from Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom.
That too.
I mean, Rohan did manage to draw the ring made in heaven, so
absolutely,
that's true. That is also true. But what happens in the screen test that Dino does? Sassie takes the money and is limping along before Dino shows up and takes it to help. He provides her shelter by randomly making an igloo out of snow and kisses her hand. Just as Dino takes the money and runs off screen, a stereotypical mustached villain shows up and steals it. And it turns out that we have another special guest here because this is obviously Dick Dastardly's ancestor. Or, Shark, go ahead.
Yeah, or Dick Dastardly's granddad.
Yeah, we had to say it. We had to say it, folks. Sorry.
Yep. Or his great, not so great, great grandfather. I had to make that joke too because if I didn't, who would?
Yeah, classic.
For all the Steve Carell and Jim Carrey, Horton Hears a Who fans out there, that one's for you.
Yeah, nice. But Dino fights the villain off screen as he takes the money with the scene ending. Fred, of course, is overjoyed to see this and sees Dino as a literal bag of money before a sleazy Hollywood agent approaches him and swindles him out of Dino. This guy is voiced by an actor named Herschel Bernardi, who was a very popular comedian of the time. He's probably best known, I think, for TV commercials, believe it or not. But yeah, he actually is a really funny guy here with his performance. There's a good bit with him promising Fred, you'll get $30 a week for Dino. And Fred mutters $30 a week. And then the guy says, yeah, you want that or you want a kick in the head, you know? And he literally stuffs Fred short with the money in a pretty funny gag. Yep. We then cut to the director's office where he and the agent are talking about changes to make with Dino to the TV show. They start off with contact lenses and teeth caps before talking about cutting off part of his tail as it's too large, leading to, again, a hilarious reaction to Dino. Then they talk about him dating Sassie to get the ratings up. Dino watches as Sassie takes off her wig and then her makeup, only to find out that she really does not look good without it on. Let's do it that way. Angron, you were saying?
Two things about this. One, what follows when he sees her taking off her makeup and whatnot is just hilarious. It's just him going like, ugh! And he just freaking slowly turns his head and slides out of there with the little xylophone tippy toe noise, which honestly reminds me of that one scene from Dragon Prince where Callum's in a fever dream and like King Harrow is there chained up to his throne and he's like, I don't know, man, it's your dream, and he just freaking slides back with it. Second thing, it reminds me of this one Mad TV freaking bit where it's celebrities without their makeup, and it's and two of them that remind me of is freaking is one of them where it's like Santa's ho 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 is gone without it. It just shows freaking Popeye, and then at the end of it all, it's like, and everyone loves SpongeBob SquarePants, and it just freaking shows him without it shows him as a freaking
definitely can see that. Yeah,
when he's without his makeup. Oh man, good times.
It's all good. So Matt, you were saying?
Yeah, I'm actually really amazed that Dino's reaction upon seeing the real Sassie isn't a meme, because it is one of the best reaction shots.
it is
I've ever
hilarious.
seen.
Yeah.
It is
The
hilarious.
funniest joke in this episode.
Oh yeah.
It is. It is hilarious. And what makes it even funnier is the fact that how Dino leaves. He literally just tiptoes out of the room, not even turning backwards. He just has that traumatized look on his face as he slowly tiptoes his way out, while the director and the Hollywood agent laugh about having Dino work for them for years and years.
Yeah, it's also fun. Yeah, just like speaking of which, as of this recording, there is a GIF of that scene in the works on Tenor. So
Nice.
what you
Let's
wish
hope it
for.
becomes a meme because it should. It really should.
Yes.
It's too funny not to. But what happens is Fred is returning home and is dejected, despite telling Betty and Wilma that he's so happy for what's happening with Dino. And the laugh track actually goes off in this part, which feels kind of weird because this is supposed to be more of like a serious scene, but then you have the laugh track, and it's kind of weird. I think again it was put in by the network and not by them because I can't see like Hanna Barbera themselves actually wanting the laugh track to be a part of this. But what happens is Fred literally burns the $30 he was given and openly weeps as he puts a candle in the window. But then his tear puts it out. He then goes to the picture of Dino on the mantle as it seemingly barks back, talking to it. But then he notices that, hey, pictures don't bark. Then notices that Dino is back and is overjoyed, basically showering him with love and praise and that. Oh, go ahead, Shark.
Gary, your meow makes me harder for me for forget about you. Gary!
It is.
Yeah.
It is kind of like that in a way. You know, I wonder, did they get that from this? It very well could have been.
Maybe.
Angron,
But it
you were saying?
also but it also kind of reminds me of that one scene from Madagascar where like they're talking about going to find Alex, and then like after Gloria's pep talk, no one's like, oh, Gloria, that wasn't me, that was the boat. The boat.
Nice. But what happens is Fred decides to put on Dino's favorite show, but as soon as they say that Sassie is coming on, he turns it off. And he tells Fred basically that he doesn't want to be famous anymore or watch Sassie as Betty and Barney arrive. The episode itself ends with Dino jumping on Fred and licking him as Fred laughs, happy to have his pet back in a really sweet moment. And it's here where we get to the end credits. And again, because the Meet the Flintstones opening wasn't here, it'd be weird to have the Meet the Flintstones outro as well. What happens with this ending animation is different, with Fred turning off the TV, basically zipping up a bird in a cage and putting out the milk and the cat before being locked out. Like the Meet the Flintstones ending, but slightly different. And here's the animation error I want to point out. Something that I've noticed, and once you see it, you will never not notice it. There's a part where Fred goes to zip up the bird in the cage and it shows Wilma sleeping. She does not have a mouth drawn on her at this part.
Yep.
You know, it's something that when you notice it, you will never not notice it. You know, that they forgot to draw a mouth on Wilma, like even like a simple line in that. And it looks kind of weird. You know, it actually does look really weird that they left this error in pretty much every episode until Meet the Flintstones, but oh well. But,
yeah. Anyways,
yep.
Yeah.
Flintstones itself was popular for many years, probably reaching its peak with the 90s movie, which honestly, the 90s Flintstones movie with John Goodman, it's not terrible. There is one thing that's a shame about it, and that's who they wanted to play Fred, because it wasn't going to be John Goodman originally. It was going to be, and this would have been perfect casting, John Candy.
Yep.
That would have been absolutely perfect casting him as Fred Flintstone. Not saying that Goodman didn't do a good job, but that's actually how they got Rick Moranis to play Barney Rubble, because him and John Candy were best friends.
Dang.
So he signed on when Candy was going to play Fred, but when he passed away, he was still on the contract to do it. Anyway, you were going to say?
But yeah, also also doubling back to the Flintstones ending, it reminds me of this one stinger on Adult Swim where it's like Bedrock, the suburbs, but everyone's lights already off, but there's like still one person freaking knocking, and it's just spear knocking on the door and waking everyone up. But he doesn't speak. He's just like, "Arr," which no doubt he's probably saying "Fang," while inside Fang is literally just on the freaking stone recliner watching the TV, all comfy and cozy with a dead freaking boar in front of the recliner, and her covered up in a freaking blanket. Not fully, but it's just honestly
They should have made a whole
adorable.
episode of that. That would have been funny as hell if they made like Primal but in an alternate universe where it was Flintstones. That would have been funny as hell if they actually did that. That really, yeah, Fred and Barney, you know, meeting with that would have been amazing. Absolutely amazing.
That would have been crazy.
But what's interesting is not just Flintstones, but the amount of time they tried to reboot the Flintstones, because after the failed attempt that we talked previously about On the Rocks, but there have been several other attempts to bring Flintstones back to TV. There was probably most infamously one that was going to be done by Seth MacFarlane in around 2013, 2014. It got as far in development to have background paintings done, but nothing of it has been released. Absolutely nothing, which is so surreal because Seth is apparently a huge Flintstones fan, and he wanted to make it feel like the original show, but more like a modern version. I don't know if he would have done, you know, it justice. Hopefully he would have, but it never came out, so he wouldn't know.
Yeah, it's also
Angron?
Yeah, it's also interesting to note that if you want more proof that he's a diehard Flintstones fan, just look at the episode Halloween special where Peter makes a clone of himself, and that clone not only freaking devolves, but it shows 3 specific instances of sitcom dads. One of his old version, the other of Homer, the other of his first iteration when they were
Larry.
Yeah, Larry.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Lastly, before he freaking poofs off, it shows Fred Flintstone going like, Wilma! That is how freaking dedicated he was to his craft.
Exactly. And Shark, you were gonna say?
Yeah, speaking of Seth, I know that when they asked about this reboot and they asked, do you think you're going to do a good job? His answer was, it can't be worse than Rock Vegas.
Yeah, because Rock Vegas is not a good movie. If you haven't seen it, don't. It's very bad. But there was also
the only good thing I can say about Rock Vegas is that they did a very good job on Barney in that one.
Yeah, better than nothing else. Better than Rick Moranis. I gotta give him credit for that. But there's also the very short-lived show Yabba Dabba Dinosaurs. This is basically, oh hey, let's do Flintstones, but also maybe like OKKO. But it does not sound. It is not nearly as good as that sounds. That sounds awesome. It's not. It's really, really slow and not too funny. The designs they did for the characters are a little off-putting too, at least for me. They're trying to do the more modern art style with the Flintstones characters, and it looks kind of weird. And then there was the project that was going to be released a couple of years ago with Elizabeth Banks as Pebbles Flintstone, an adult Pebbles, and that never got made. And apparently there's been official confirmation just a couple of weeks ago. It's officially been canceled, and it's never seen the light of day. So Flintstones sadly has not had a lot of luck with modern interpretations.
2 things on that. One, I looked up freaking Yabba Dabba Dinosaurs, and good lord, it looks like YOLO Crystal Fantasy mixed with the animation fluidity of Mighty Magiswords, which that's a little off-putting. Second, the adult Pebbles reminds me of I Yabba Dabba Do, the TV movie that where Bam Bam and Pebbles are grown up and they're planning on actually wedding.
Yeah, like I say, that I think was the official ending to the Flintstones that Hanna Barbera themselves wanted. But yeah, it's so weird. It's like that's the one thing they can't crack. Like Scooby is getting like reimaginings here and there. A lot of the other classic characters got Jellystone, but it's like Flintstones is the one they just can't seem to take a crack at, and it's kind of a shame in a way. Regardless, it's fun, and I think it's going to be legendary still. Maybe it's not as popular as it once was, but I feel like in some small way it'll always be in popular culture in one way or another. Which leads me to the question of the episode. What was your favorite Hanna-Barbera cartoon? Yep. And mine is going to be interesting because when we say Hanna-Barbera, we're not going to talk about the we're probably not going to be talking about the Cartoon Network ones later on. We're probably going to be talking about the ones that people most associate with Hanna-Barbera. For my favorite ones, I have kind of two, or rather one and a half. Because my favorite Hanna-Barbera show, as much as I really like Flintstones and the Scooby-Doo was a lot of fun in that, my favorite Hanna-Barbera show is actually Wacky Races. I have no idea why. I think it's because of Dick Dastardly, which leads me to my one and a half, because my half choice is going to be the Dick Dastardly spinoff, the Stop the Pigeon cartoons, basically. I believe it's called like Dastardly and Muttley and the Flying Machine or something like that. But just something about Dick Dastardly himself and Muttley. They are so hilarious. Dick Dastardly is voiced by the great Paul Winchell, who also was Tigger of Winnie the Pooh, believe it or not. Yep. And he is so funny. And it's the relationship between him and Muttley is just so hilarious. And Wacky Races, like 9/10 of the other characters, you can kind of take or leave, basically. But it's the Dastardly and Muttley, antics that get me laughing so hard. Like I watched this when I was a kid on Cartoon Network, and I laughed hard at it. And I watch it now, and I laugh hard at it. And fun fact is that the Spanish dub of Wacky Races, Dick Dastardly is French. He's called Pierre No de Luna. That means Pierre, I can't win, basically. And again, it's a funny change on that, Yeah, it's really funny because Hanna-Barbera over here, I don't think Spain really dubbed cartoons on our own back then. They really used the same dub that was used in Latin America and South America at the time. So we got the same voices in that. So that's probably how I know him as that. But it is such a funny show. And again, it's one that, as a whole, it has its hits and misses. But anytime Dastardly and Muttley are on screen and they do one of their wacky schemes to win the race, it's hilarious. Like, I think the funniest one is the part when Dick Dastardly is almost going to win. He is so close. And then they do the photo finish. And he comes in dead last because he stepped out of the car to take a picture with the trophy. That's something that's just, it's so funny, Anyway.
A little bit of trivia about Dick Dastardly's Flying Machines. It is actually, that show has the honor of being like the first show that has an antagonist or bad guy as a protagonist, actually.
Yep.
Yeah, it's also
because it's
funny
about Dastardly, Muttley, and two other mechanics, Zilly and Clunk, trying to stop this pigeon from delivering war plans and that. And again, that's a really funny one too, with like the ridiculous ways. I think they destroyed at least 20 planes in every single short. They just kept smashing them into the ground in like various creative ways. And it is so funny. It really, really is. And that's my pick for my favorite Hanna-Barbera shows is
it's also
Wacky
funny
Races
because
/ Dastardly and Muttley. Go ahead.
It's also funny because this reminds you of both Rip Slinger's defeat in Planes and also the Wile E. Coyote Wile E. Coyote shorts, which that also is a thing where we have an antagonist as a protagonist for the most part.
That is true. That is very, very true. So, Angron, what would your favorite Hanna-Barbera show be?
Doggy. Without Crypto the Superdog or What's New Scooby-Doo, this is going to be a little tricky, but I think I'll manage. Rather than talking about Powerpuff Girls or Dexter's Laboratory, two of Tartakovsky and Rossetti's top-tier classic shows, one more than the other, that being Powerpuff Girls in my opinion, rather than talking about Scooby-Doo, rather than talking about what was that other Hanna-Barbera show that I absolutely enjoyed? I forget, but Barbera absolutely had a lot. Pup Named Scooby-Doo. That was another one that I grew up with and enjoyed.
Classic.
Instead, I am going to pull a math and pull an obscure Hanna-Barbera cartoon out of my ass. And
go ahead.
that obscure cartoon is Dink the Little Dinosaur. Believe me. Oh, wait, I forgot to mention freaking Adventures of Corduroy. I haven't seen it yet, but seriously, this came out in the 90s, and it had a character that was legit. One of the few episodes she had, she legit puts ice down her freaking bra. Yeah, it's a stuffed animal, but it follows the freaking Astro Boy logic of it's so and so, not this, so it's fair game. Which was basically an excuse for people to be horny without technically being horny, in quotation marks. But yeah,
that was
for my
Ruby
pick.
Spears.
What?
Ruby
Dink
Spears
was
did
Ruby
that.
Spears.
Fuck.
It's okay. It's okay.
Well, you know what? Then in that case, I think I am absolutely going to go with, if not Adventures of Corduroy, which I have yet to see, I am going to have to pick Powerpuff Girls, because Dink the Little Dinosaurs and Hanna Barbera, which
It's okay.
blew that out of the water. I'm totally not bitter or anything. I'm really not. But yeah, I'm absolutely going to pick Powerpuff Girls. It was one of Tartakovsky's first, and honestly, it's one of his best. And technically, Craig McCracken and Lauren Faust first, but Lauren Faust came in at around season 4, and not gonna lie, the changes she made, while nice, were kinda controversial in my opinion. Nothing wrong with what we got, but at the cost of making Mojo Jojo a bit more sympathetic, having a bit more humor, and basically being more referential than later seasons of MLP Generation 4, we got a mayor that ultimately kinda was a little bit more of a man-child than he was in the original. Like, seriously, the guy was a man-child in the first few, but having him be freaking like this freaking man baby here was, yeah, not a real great change in my opinion. He was competent in the first, but come on, you're telling me that this is the same mayor that we got in the first, where like even though he could be like playing freaking a sort of version of Ocarina of Time and killing Navi like we all kind of wanted to do for the most part. I didn't, but still, you know who you are if you did. But in the next, he could actively be like giving the Powerpuff Girls a lesson about being about addiction and too much candy. But I digress. I absolutely I digress. I absolutely love this. It was one of Craig McCracken's first. It was one of Tartakovsky's first, hands down. But yeah, it's absolutely going to be that, if not Adventures of Corduroy. I really need to see that series because it is a series that I very, very much am interested in for that one character in particular, and also because I kind of grew up with the Corduroy show that either preceded it or followed it. We shall see. Jury's still out on that, but yeah, I'm absolutely going to pick Powerpuff Girls. Sorry for the elongated thing, but yeah, Powerpuff Girls.
Yep, that is.
Oh yeah. Oh, before I forget, actually, I can't talk about that without talking about the reboot, which sucks, which I'm not gonna, and the Powerpuff Girls Z, which is actually very enjoyable. I recommend that hands down. Craig McCracken didn't exactly give the okay on it, but honestly, didn't have to. It was a great show that had the Ocean dub of all people do it.
Yep, that's a great choice right there. I definitely can see
Yes.
that. So, Matt, what would you say is your favorite Hanna Barbera show?
So I'm not going to go with Scooby-Doo or Flintstones or the typical Yogi Bear cast because that's just too easy. I would have gone with SWAT Cats, but that's not typically a show that people think of when they think of Hanna-Barbera style productions.
This is going to
be my second one, and this is absolutely a Hanna-Barbera style production. So we all know that the Flintstones is the first animated multi-season primetime sitcom, and then the next one we all think of is The Simpsons. There was a show in between that often gets forgotten. Wait Till Your Father Gets Home.
I have never heard of this.
No.
It does. It is the second of 3. So Flintstones, Wait Till Your Father Gets Home, and The Simpsons. Animated series, multi-season long, that were in prime time.
Wow.
And you can see the kind of the transition from one to the second to the third. Wait Till Your Father Gets Home was very much in the Hanna-Barbera style, animated All in the Family.
Huh, that is interesting.
All in the Family, for those that don't remember,
wow.
because you'll remember the character, Archie Bunker.
Wow, All in the wow, and that sounds insane that they actually aired a show like that, like an animated All in the Family. That is wow.
That's pretty
It's its
crazy.
own thing, but it's ripping off All in the Family. Like you can absolutely see that, like a 1-to-1 with a bunch of the characters.
Yeah, kind of like how Flintstones was Honeymooners. This was All in the Family. I get it. Kinda like that.
It's a really great show. It's just set in the modern era being 1970s Americana, California, I think that they're in. And it's very just slice of life. This is just what it's like being a middle class suburban dad. It's very well done. Got the really cheap production because Hanna Barbera, but the comedy and the story setting is very timeless. The only thing that tells you it's the 70s is because everything is really fucking cheap, but it's all the stories. You could have those beats today, and it's amazing how well it holds up. And that's saying something because this is 50 years old, and just saying that makes me turn to dust.
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Again, it's a show that really I have never heard of this before. I really gotta check that out because Hanna-Barbera doing something a lot more mature like that really sounds interesting. I feel like that's something that again, I really really gotta check this out because it sounds like something I really think I'd enjoy at least to see it.
And there is another reason that the show is somewhat known. The main cast themselves aren't that well remembered. There is a side character in this, Ralph Kane, who is very well remembered if you've ever seen him, because he's effectively the crazy conspiracy nut neighbor. He was a direct reference to, he became the direct inspiration for another series that came later, and this is more the series that I would say is the sequel to Wait Till Your Father Gets Home. He is Dale Gribble from King of the Hill.
Wow. Really?
It's not even speculation. Like he's actually said that Ralph Kane was his inspiration for Dale Gribble.
Wow, I did not know that. That is amazing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
wow,
obscure stuff.
That's really really cool stuff. Wow. So
This
Shark
has been Matt with your little known animation factoids.
Huh. But yeah, I'm really glad we talk about this because that's now I have a brand new thing and I'm really gonna enjoy that.
Yep.
So, let's see, Shark. What would you say is your favorite Hanna-Barbera show?
Well, I'm gonna go with two. One that's more on the classic era. Everybody thinks when they say Hanna-Barbera, and one of their latest projects. But let's start with the classic, which is it's actually gonna be Wacky Races 2.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, for once, Dick Dastardly, yes, it's a very fun character, but I do like the idea of like all the characters, every single team or racer has like their own gimmicks, like the caveman, the scientist, the horror ones, and it's kind of really fun and clever seeing like they going through a similar obstacle but solving them in their own with their own abilities, with their own team. Of course, there's I already said the Dastardly is pretty funny how everything he tries to cheat, it comes back to bite him in the butt.
Yeah, yep.
And yes, several of these characters eventually got their own show. Like you say, Dick Dastardly got his own plane show with the dove. Penelope got her own with the 7 other guys actually.
Oh right, yeah, that was a really funny one.
I think
forgot
it's
about that
Penelope's Perils or something like that.
Right,
Wait, what was the show called again?
Penelope Pit Stop, something like that.
Something like Penelope's Perils or
something like that.
Yeah, and the 7 dudes in the little car also show up in that show. They're like her bodyguards. The caveman became Captain Caveman, obviously. Yeah, that's a fun one. And oh, nice. Yeah, and well, we already talked enough about it. The more not modern, because it's still a very pretty old one by today's standards, but it's gonna be Johnny Bravo actually.
Oh yes,
Ooh,
I had a feeling you would reference that.
Yeah,
I had a feeling you would.
Yeah,
we'll be talking about it on the podcast sooner than later. Hint, hint.
Yep. Because and it's kind of funny because there you can still see how they were inspired by celebrities or stars. Because Johnny Bravo was inspired by Elvis.
That makes sense, honestly.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm not
The
gonna
whole.
lie,
Yep.
Yeah,
In fact, did you watch
exactly.
the pilot episode? He's dressed almost like Elvis. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting. It's a really fun cartoon. The character is just stupid, but it's actually well-meaning. Like he doesn't do bad things out of malice, but alright, just he doesn't know any better. The other characters are fun, like her mom, Carl, and Pops, who were introduced in the second season, and even one-shot characters are really, really, really memorable and funny. Cough, cough, werewolf, cough, cough.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Move,
And
antelope, hurry,
but
mate.
it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting how Johnny Bravo changed in like its second and third season compared to its first, and we'll talk more about that when we do the episode
Yeah, when
on
we get
Johnny
to it,
Bravo.
but
Yeah,
there is
but,
a reason. There is a reason,
yeah,
and we'll
it's
discuss it
interesting.
when it's Johnny's turn. But
Yep.
yeah, it's
But
one
no.
of the. Yeah, it was one of the funniest cartoons on Cartoon Network before the Ed voice came in. So
Yeah, it definitely was.
Yep.
Ed voice. Well, if only there was a way to talk about them. But anyways,
Yep.
yeah, it's gonna be my answer. Wacky Races for the more classic ones, more old ones, and Johnny Bravo for what was the last works of Hanna Barbera.
Yeah.
Nice. That is so
I'm
great.
gonna murder the moose. That will forever be one of my favorite lines whenever Becky gets brought up.
Classic. That's another funny one too. So, Jordan, what would you say is your favorite Hanna-Barbera show?
I usually grew up with a lot of the Scooby-Doo, a little bit of the Flintstones, and the Powerpuff Girls because it was back in the 20s.
Nice.
But I kind of
Same.
grew up a little bit watching Yogi Bear and Pink Panther a bit.
Oh, Pink
Pink
Panther.
Panther
That's
is not
right.
Hanna-Barbera, unfortunately. Pink Panther's not Hanna-Barbera.
Oh, it's not?
Unfortunately.
Aw.
I mean, if you think about it, like how his design was, it kind of looks like Hanna-Barbera, but it's not.
It was,
Same with the Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
It was Freeling, the guy who worked on Looney Tunes before getting his own studio, but
Yeah. So yeah, it would probably have to be Yogi Bear, I guess. I kind of grew up watching a little bit of those a bit, not a whole lot, but Powerpuff Girls most took a lot of me too. But Yogi Bear, I remember a lot of watching a little bit of his cartoon shows.
nice.
A line just came to mind, and I just heard it in Yogi Bear's voice. Hey, boo-boo! Ready to maul some campers for some picnic baskets?
Yeah, so
class.
it's gonna be Yogi Bear because growing up, I remember going to a campsite that in real life there's a campsite of Yogi Bear campground. I remember going as a kid. I'm like, oh look, it's Yogi Bear.
Oh, wow. I
Nice.
didn't know that
Yeah.
happened. Wow,
Yeah.
that is really neat.
So yeah, it's gonna be Yogi Bear for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great choice. Well, now it is time for the Dragoness Scale, where I rank the character. I'll go first.
boy.
And what's interesting is this is going to be an interesting one because there's a lot of personality in that, which I like. The character design really is just the same as Dino, but a different color and with a wig on. But as revealed later on, that's not her real look. Haha. I don't know. I'm going to give her, mostly because of the amount of personality she has, despite not saying a word in that. I'm going to actually go and give her maybe a 7 out of 10 because, again, the design itself is really simplistic in a way, but it's simplistic in a way that works, you know? And for what they wanted to do with this one-off character, I feel like it really does fit into what they wanted with the character of Sassie and that, but plus, I mean, I'm sorry, they had some real funny moments with that.
Yeah,
too,
they
with
did.
The whole satirical thing of it, basically, again, being the proto-genesis of like a Simpsons level of satire. So for that alone, I'm going to give her a pretty high score of 7 out of 10. And what would you give her?
Whew, boy, that's gonna be tough. On the one hand, I agree. She doesn't do a whole lot. She doesn't do a whole lot. I mean, granted, she is sort of a one-off character and an actress at that. So I mean, it probably was going to be a little tricky, regardless of whatever they did.
Very true.
Not to mention her snobbish and whole reveal at the end kind of docks her a tiny bit of brownie points. But but on the other hand, it gave us that one Dino meme, which I am so
Classic,
ready for
yeah,
when it gets on Tenor later today. As of this recording.
Same.
And honestly, even without her makeup, she honestly doesn't look too bad. I'll say that much. Like a lot of stars and a lot of people look freaking a little off without makeup on, and honestly, Mad really had their fun teasing this a little bit with again that one Christmas celebrities without their makeup. But yeah, I did like what they did with Sassie here, even if it didn't exactly sit with me 100% great. So, in keeping the train rolling, chugga chugga, bitch, I am going to do a 7 out of 10 as well. She's not, okay, calling her not offensive would be a little inaccurate, but not to the point that she's ever racist or like absolutely offensive.
Yep, I understand because Flintstones, some parts are kind of dated, but we won't talk about that here.
Etc., etc.
Yeah, we'll talk about that another time. Yep. But anyway, Math, what would you give her?
I think I'm going to go with you guys as well for a 7. So, Hanna Barbera is really great at streamlining designs and making them look appealing. She's effectively just a female Dino, and Dino has already he's been around for long enough that they were figuring out how to make his design look as good and appealing as possible, so they just slapped a wig on this one and called it a day, which works well enough. So from a design perspective, I thought that she was okay, and I thought that so she's effectively just a female Dino until the very end, and that joke really sells this.
Yes.
I think that we all identify with Dino and his reaction upon seeing that.
Yes.
We all have that one actor or actress who just does not look great without freaking makeup, and for some of us, we'd rather it stay that way. We'd rather they keep their makeup on. But hey, sometimes if they're comfortable with how they look, who are we to judge, right?
Yep.
So yeah, it was that little reveal joke that made her a 7, because Hanna-Barbera knows how to add in enough humor and enough of a funny situation to make even their just one-off characters really stand out, and this is a prime example of that. Now it's just a 7 because, well, she's not really there all that much, and let's be frank, that ending was ooh.
Yeah.
That
I
was
can definitely understand why.
Such catharsis. So what was your ranking again?
He gave it a 7 out of 10 too. So I'm Shark.
Nice.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to break the chain, but not by much.
Derailed.
I'm gonna give her a 6 out of 10 on my side.
Oh.
Because the design, well, I really say it's just Dino with wigs, which I can see why they went with that, but at the same time, really wish they went a little bit further. But okay, I give them that. It's Hanna Barbera. It was the 60s. You couldn't do much. And like everyone else says, that the twist definitely is hilarious. Dino's reaction is hilarious. Now the thing it doesn't because she does work, but the reason I kind of lowering the score is because her archetype or type of character is something we have seen a lot. The star that this character has a crush on, but when they meet the real actress, they are just snobbish and like all. It's a cliche, but at the same time, well, this might be one of the earliest examples of that. So I can't fault the show so much because of that at the same time. It's just that on my side, it's like, I've seen this, so I know what's going to happen. I know what's going to be the reveal. And even yet, it did make me laugh, I will admit. Maybe if this was one of the earliest, maybe if I did watch this show as a kid and this was one of the earliest times I got an example of this type of story, maybe I would have been a higher score. But for how I see it now, how familiar with it I am now, with this type of character, it works, but it could have worked more for me. So it's going to be a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I see that. Ironically enough, that's the same score Lucky gave as much as
we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yep.
And Jordan, what would you give Sassie?
I'm gonna stick to the 7. I'm gonna go back on the train Or 7.
Okay.
I mean, yes, it's
7,
a female
nice.
Dino, which everyone loved Dino as a kid, as a Flintstone character. Everyone loves Dino. So yeah, seeing that like she's a more different character, and Dino's like, oh my god, here's someone who's like me. I could probably or probably not want to be with, but I'm sticking to the 7 train. I'm gonna get back on that.
Yep.
Nice. And as Angron just said, Lucky Evie also gave us his score. He gave her a 6 out of 10, reasoning that she's pretty much a female Dino, which, again, makes sense. Oh, I almost forgot. He mentioned that his favorite Hanna Barbera show, the show he mentioned was Scooby-Doo. Whether it was the original or one of the remakes, I am not sure, but still kind of a classic choice, and we'll talk about him later on in the podcast lifespan. But that's going to be it for this week. If you have any questions or you want to send us your impression of Frank Nelson or John Stevenson, you can email us at fierydiscourse@outlook.com. Visit us on Twitter at twitter.com/fierydiscourse. Be sure to like and subscribe the YouTube channel, and also check out the playlist. Any and all help is definitely appreciated. Next week, we'll be talking about something a little more modern as we talk about the 2014 Ben 10 Omniverse episode, Third Time's the Charm. It'll be a lot of fun, and we're getting to a real good dragoness this time. And it'll be a lot of fun to talk about her. I'm definitely looking forward to it. But that's going to be it for this week. And until then, thank you guys so much for watching, and take care.
Later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Adios. See you all next week.
Out.